Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. The NCAA tournament is about to begin. We're breaking down the brackets, talking about some coaching changes as well. We'll get into some Major League Baseball news, some NFL news, that, and a little bit more. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up in me?
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast. It's madness around here. It is March Madness is finally here. The brackets have been released. But, Dad, before we can get to the brackets, we have to cover the more important news of the day, and that is Will Wade has finally been fired at LSU. And what's crazy, Dad, is their statement is that after accusations of, and now I'm going to have to find it exactly. I should have had this pulled up and ready to go. But the wording was weird, I thought. Come on, now where did it go? All right, LSU fired Will Wade after receiving a notice of allegations that detailed significant misconduct. Oh, wait a second. Didn't we know this a few years ago when there was audio recording of Will Wade? I mean, what in the world? At least he finally got fired. It's finally happened. LSU makes the tournament. They'll have an interim coach for the tournament games there. I know you don't have the same hatred for Will Wade that I do, but I'm excited to see that he is finally out of the door, and maybe he'll go coach at Iona when Rick Pitino goes to Florida later this week. We'll see how all that shakes out. Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, let's talk tournament, Dad. Gonzaga gets the number one overall seeding, which is no surprise. Anything that immediately jumped out and surprised you with the brackets?
No, it's kind of what I'd heard. I don't agree with the number one seeds. I think Baylor should not have been a number one seed. I think when you lose the first game in your tournament, as close as everything was this year, I really thought that should have knocked them out of that. But everything I was hearing was they were going to be a number one seed. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I was surprised by that. I wouldn't necessarily have agreed with that.
Who would you have put in their place?
I would have put either Villanova or Tennessee.
Okay, so then let's go to Tennessee. They're a number 3 seed.
Yes. Yeah, and that surprised the people I saw on TV too, because they played so well in the tournament. Of course, they played so well today. But how much today affects, I don't know, because they're probably got the brackets pretty well set before that goes on. Tennessee is playing good basketball now. I think everybody's a little surprised that they're a 3 seed and not a 2 seed.
Yeah, and you put them in there with Arizona as the 1 seed, Villanova's the 2, Tennessee the 3, Illinois the 4. So there's some tough matchups in there. Loyola Chicago, Ohio State's going to be an interesting 7-10 matchup there as well. Colorado State, Michigan is going to be an interesting game in that side of the bracket. Also, Houston is a decent team over there also. So not only did Tennessee get the 3 seed, they got put in a pretty tough bracket, especially when you're talking about Arizona, Illinois, and Villanova all in that same bracket as well.
Yes, yeah, they really did. So, but again, they've been playing well, but they'll have to play through it. They didn't get any breaks there, so.
No, they did not. Let's talk about the Gonzaga bracket out west. Gonzaga 1, of course. Duke 2. Duke in the second round is more than likely going to have to face, Michigan State or Davidson, either team there. You got Texas Tech in that bottom half of the bracket as well. Alabama is there. Arkansas is in the bracket. UConn, Memphis, and Boise State as the 8-9 is going to be an incredible matchup. And those teams, Memphis has the talent to be great, but they have not been great at all this year. Very inconsistent. But you're talking about making a run now. If they can get past Boise State, they got a shot there as well. Which in that bracket, anything that stands out to you?
No, again, I mean, that one kind of, there wasn't really any surprises over there. I don't know that that's the hardest bracket. I wouldn't say it's an easy one, and there will be some good games. in that from there. But it'd be interesting to see how Gonzaga's probably in pretty good shape in the top part of the bracket there, even though they do got, like you said, Memphis is a possibility. And we've all talked about Arkansas. They didn't do what we thought they'd do in the SEC tournament, but Arkansas's played some good ball. So, they're probably not, guaranteed to get through that.
That whole bracket, I think, that whole side of the bracket, section of the bracket is the what-if teams. Alabama, a lot of high expectations coming into the season. They've underwhelmed. Arkansas lost a couple of games that everybody kind of shook their head at, like, what? How did they lose that? Same thing with Gonzaga. Duke, again, a very talented team. They've underwhelmed. They lost to North Carolina. They lost to Virginia Tech. These are games that they should not have lost to, especially when talking about historic moments for Coach K. They really let them down. They do get to play in South Carolina for their opening round games, which is interesting. But nonetheless, it will be a tough bracket. We've already talked about the Arizona, the South bracket. Let's go to the Midwest. Kansas, the 1 seed. As soon as they came up, before I saw anybody else in the bracket, I tweeted out Kansas will be the number 1 seed, the first number 1 seed to lose in this tournament. How soon it'll be, I'm not sure. It could be as early as day 2. It could be the third round, but nonetheless, I don't have a lot of confidence about this Kansas team. They got teams like Creighton, San Diego State, that they would face one of those two teams in the next round if they get past Texas Southern or Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Richmond, who had a great tournament and won their tournament on Sunday. Providence is there. LSU, they're nothing. Iowa State, Wisconsin, who gets to play in Milwaukee, by the way, in round 1. Wisconsin's there. USC, Miami, and Auburn all sitting right there as well. Your thoughts on the Midwest bracket? Anything stands out to you there?
I mean, I think all the brackets this year are fairly balanced, but to me, I was trying to look and see which one I thought was the toughest, and probably the Midwest. When you look at the 4 teams that could end up there, they would all be very good teams. And, there's some good teams even before those, the number 1, 2, 4 seeds move on. There'll be some good games there because you got Iowa and different ones in there. So to me, that's probably the toughest bracket. The South is real good too, but I think they're all this year. It seemed like the brackets, there's not one that's just super easy and one that's super hard. And again, we've said all year that's because the teams have really been more even this year, and I think be very interesting in this tournament.
Did you watch the entire show of them letting go of the brackets?
Yes.
All right. So then you'll know this answer. Well, let me ask you, who won the NCAA tournament last year?
Baylor.
Yeah. Did you know that before they said it in the show today?
I saw it 2 days ago, and I didn't remember that. I thought I don't have any idea who won last year. But as I was looking at different things, I said, "Well, Baylor won." I would not have known that a week ago.
Yeah, they're going through the brackets, and they say the defending champs Baylor Bears, and I thought, that's right, Baylor did win last year. If you would have asked me yesterday, I probably would have had to think really long and hard before I came up with the answer. Baylor's the 1 seed. They got North Carolina and Marquette at the 8-9. UCLA at the 4, which is a team I've talked about several times throughout this year as a team to watch. Texas is an interesting team at 8. Virginia Tech had a good tournament. They're at 11. Purdue's tough at 3. Murray State is a really, really good basketball team at number 7. And then Kentucky there at number 2. Let's talk about this East bracket. Obviously, I'm a Kentucky fan, and I have to say I like the draw for Kentucky this year.
Yes. Yeah, it looks like they're in good shape. I thought they had a good draw, no doubt about it. So,
yeah, UCLA scares me. They're a team that, again, they're a veteran team. They've played together. They're a very good team, had a lot of success together. Purdue is always dangerous, even though they're not super consistent this year at the very least. So UCLA, Purdue, again, Murray State's no pushover.
Yeah.
Kentucky has an advantage physically over Murray State, but Murray State's a really good team. And when you're talking about the tournament, you're talking about if a team can just knock down threes, they're in a game. And Murray State has a chance to make a run. And Baylor, I think Baylor's good. I think they've got a pretty easy go until they have to face up against what I think will be UCLA, and that would be in the Sweet 16. And they should be able to beat UCLA as well. It's interesting. I'm not going to ask for picks right now. We're recording this Sunday night. I know that, Monday, as the episode comes out, more people have time to think about it, but we're not going to do our picks just yet, Dad. We'll hold off on those. We'll have our brackets and we'll post them for people to see on social media, and we'll talk about those in another episode. But Tennessee is what really surprised me, being a 3 seed. I thought that was probably the biggest discrepancy of all the rankings. Kansas at 1, I think, is laughable, but I understand why they're there. And so, I mean, like you said, I think it is we talked about it throughout the season. This is going to be a really good year for college basketball, and the tournament should be a lot of fun. And there's going to be some interesting players that are going to really come out of this tournament, I think, as well. And then Coach K, he didn't get it stacked in his favor. He could play Izzo in round 2, possibly. Davidson might beat Michigan State, but he could see a Coach K and Izzo matchup in round number 2 very early on. And then you're talking about Texas Tech in round 3, possibly. Gonzaga, Memphis, whoever else, Arkansas. It's not an easy go for Duke, which is a little surprising, I thought. But Duke didn't help themselves with the way they played here at the end of the season either. Do you have a thought on who you're going to pick to go all the way?
I haven't really looked at it, so I probably shouldn't. I mean, I've got all my favorite teams got a shot at it at this point. But, yeah, I need to look at that a little more, I think, from there. So Illinois was a little bit of a letdown in the tournament, but they don't have too bad a draw. Of course, they could have Arizona fairly early. But, we'll see how that goes. So
I think Arizona's kind of the team I'm leaning towards right now. I like the draw that they got. And then I think a team like UCLA or Arkansas would be 2 teams to watch to make a deep run as well. And could it be like the dark horse teams to watch? I say dark horse, they're 4 seeds. But anyways, is there any team, I know you haven't had a lot of time to look at it, but is there any team that stands out to you? Let's say a 10 seed or lower, 10 to 16 seed, that you say, yeah, I could see them in the, let's say, Final Four?
Again, I don't know about that. We always say the 8-9 games will be good, and I think they're really good this time. Maybe not the Seton Hall TCU as much, but the other 3 definitely will be very good games there. I think Virginia Tech is on a roll, so that's kind of interesting. We're playing Texas. They might be a team that could really move up through things there. So it'll be interesting from there.
Yeah, a lot of people will be in on Loyola Chicago. Clark, not Clark, the other guy that I forget his name now. No, why am I forgetting his name? Anyways, the guys on the show, that was kind of their first thought was Loyola Chicago. They're going to beat Ohio State. And so a lot of people will be in on that team. Again, I'm looking at later rounds. Virginia Tech's a good team to talk about for sure. And I'm trying to see who the other one is because I've already forgotten. Vermont. They're a 13 seed. They're playing Arkansas in round 1, but they're a team also that could make a run at things as well. So, again, we'll get our brackets out. We'll share them with everybody so we can be held accountable and everybody can see we were right from the get-go.
So it does look very interesting, living right where I do here, really next to Dayton. Really good games. The 4 games that are going to be there, some really good teams, probably bigger name teams than normally have been there. You got Notre Dame and Rutgers. That could be an interesting game. You have Indiana coming here against Wyoming, and that's not a given at all. Then, of course, Texas A&M, who, has had their run, drawn a lot of attention. And, of course, a local team, Wright State, will be playing here also. So, they always support that tournament well here in Dayton, but there's going to be a lot of excitement, and there'll be a lot of outside folks coming in, having Notre Dame and Indiana in it, not being very far away at all.
Yeah, 100%. They're going to fill the stadium, and you're right. The locals do a good job of showing up for the games anyhow, but now you're adding teams like Wright State, Indiana, Notre Dame. You got to imagine there's going to be a lot of a lot of people there for those games. Other college basketball news, Will Wade was fired. We already mentioned that. Georgia goes out and grabs Mike White before Florida can fire him. I saw on Twitter, I don't remember if it was Aaron Torres or someone else say, if your team, if the team that you stole the coach from is more excited than the team that hired the coach, you probably didn't make a good hire. So Mike White comes in to take over for Tom Crean in Georgia, which leaves now 4 schools in the SEC open for college basketball jobs right now. LSU, Florida, Mizzou, and Mississippi State all will be looking to hire basketball coaches here in the coming days. And the coaches in the SEC have gotten better and better, it seems like, every year. And opportunity awaits now in the SEC as well. All right.
I didn't get to really get all the stats, but I think I know the Big Ten has 9 teams and the SEC has 6. Does that surprise you at all?
I was a little surprised the Big Ten had 9 teams, but the way the tournament shook out, it made sense. I thought Michigan might miss out, and Rutgers obviously was close to missing out as well. So those are the 2 teams that I kind of questioned. But overall, the SEC, I'm not a guy that goes, an SEC truther so much to say, especially in college basketball, where I'm sitting there going, oh, man, look how many teams we have. In my opinion, it comes down to the end, right? How many teams do you have in the Final Four? How many teams do you have in the championship game? And I don't like most of the SEC teams outside of Kentucky, so I don't care too much how many they had in. But yeah, it's interesting. It's always interesting to see. And last year, I think the Big Ten had all but 1 or 2 teams knocked out after the first round. They had a really bad tournament last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be interesting. ACC, they've got a fair number, don't they?
I think so. I haven't seen the exact number, but yes, I believe so.
Yeah, they got North Carolina, Duke, Virginia Tech,
Miami.
Yeah, I feel like there was at least one more.
Carolina.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I think it'll be a really fun tournament for sure. Starting on Thursday, of course, you get the playing games Tuesday. I don't count those. Dad, what's your opinion of the play? I mean, I'm glad for the teams that get in. I think it's a neat opportunity for them. But at the end of the day, do you consider the play-in games the tournament?
Yes, I think when they started out, you had one play-in game. I really didn't, but I think the way they've come up with 4 of them now, and I think that's the best way to add teams, unless you added enough for another a whole segment. So I think this is a pretty good way to do it. As far as do those teams have a good chance with as many games as they're going to have to play in a row, that can be questioned. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think it adds. I think with making 4 games, it's made it much more legitimate and fans a little more interested. And I think with the named teams in it this year, that's going to make it even better. So yeah, I think that's where the tournament starts. There hasn't been a team from the play-in probably make it to the Sweet 16 yet. I wouldn't think.
Yes. There was a team like a UCLA or a Michigan State that made a run.
It may have been UCLA. I think you might be right on that.
Yeah, but outside of that, overall, you're correct. Not a lot of success comes from being in that play-in game. But I don't know. I'm surprised that you took that side of the argument. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm not impressed with the play. And again, I think it's cool for the teams. I think they do it right by doing it all in one location and things like that. I think that's good, but I don't know. I would feel a little gypped if our team got to the play-in and we, I would say, no, I want to make it to Thursday. Get me in Thursday, and then I'll consider it a success. Speaking of successes, the Major League Baseball is back, which is great because I co-host a fantasy baseball show, and now we got all kinds of stuff to talk about. But let's talk a few things going on in Major League Baseball. We've got our fantasy league reactivated. Keepers are getting put in. We're still missing 2 teams keepers, but almost everybody's got their keepers in. We were watching free agency take place because there are some really high value players that don't have a team currently. The Mets, they went after some things, making things happen. They already have Scherzer and DeGrom. Now they add Chris Bassett to the roster as well. And then another trade for pitchers. The Twins went out and got Sonny Gray from Cincinnati. Cincinnati officially on a rebuild. I'm watching the Reds fans burning, their houses down. They're so distraught about what's going on in Cincinnati right now. But those two pitching moves, Sonny Gray to the Twins, Chris Bassett added to the Mets rotation. That's and Kershaw, by the way, back at the Dodgers. San Francisco side, Carlos Rodon as well. And you're a San Francisco fan. What are you thinking about these pitcher movements so far?
Well, I mean, definitely there's been a lot of movement here right off. And, of course, I guess that's to be thought of in some ways because they were out for a while. It seems like teams are trying to, reload and help themselves out. Looks like they're all good moves. I think the Giant move was very good. I think he was really good last year. I know I luckily got him on my fantasy team in the middle of the year, and he really helped me out on that. Sonny Gray, of course, I've known of him since he was in high school, real near where I live there, and was a great high school football player as well as a pitcher. My resident Red fan, my wife said, why did they get rid of Sonny Gray? It's kind of neat to have him here. So you may be right about the Reds fans, but anyhow, it looks like, they're making good moves, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot more as this week goes on.
Yeah, the big names still out there right now mainly are shortstops. Trevor Story, Carlos Correa, both still looking for a job and a landing spot. There's, of course, Freddie Freeman at first base that's looking for a spot. Anthony Rizzo still out there as well. So some big-name guys that have yet to sign. Colorado, they went out and got Jose Iglesias and Alex Colon to add to their team. The White Sox added Josh Harrison, the second baseman. Twins and Rangers made a deal. Mitch Garver for Kiner Falefa. There's movement happening, and they're saying that there's going to be a lot of relievers signing here really soon. We'll see a lot of movement with reliever pitchers going on as well. You're a Giants fan. Chris Bryant is a player that finished out the year with the Giants, currently a free agent. Have you read anything, seen anything, heard anything about the Giants offseason that has you excited for the new year?
No, I haven't. Again, he would be a great one if we could keep him, but I don't know that would be the case. I know one of the guy you had on with fantasy baseball, we talked a month or so ago, said that, it wasn't a done deal that he was gone, but that will be a big one. The Giants, again, I think they replaced the pitcher pretty good with Gossman leaving, and we'll just see. We'll see where it goes. I was surprised last year they did as well as they did, but I think everybody will expect them to at least be competitive this year. It'll be interesting when these free agent moves, because I don't keep up with baseball as much, and definitely not as much as you do. But it'd be interesting in another week or two, and this gets kind of shakes through, what the projections are for the teams. Last year it was, hey, the Yankees and the Dodgers, that's who it's going to be. Well, the season went a little bit different. And so, who's going to be ranked as high this year? And the Mets getting all this pitching, is that going to turn them around? I think it'll be interesting to see the predictions in a couple of weeks as we, get in close to the season starting, middle of April. So.
Yeah, I would assume Dodgers and Padres are going to be high on everybody's list. Braves, Phillies, depending on who they sign, because they're probably going to add some pieces. Yankees and Mets both will be listed high for a lot of people too. Teams like Seattle are making a little run at things as well. And of course, I'm a Milwaukee fan, and they've not done anything yet. But one thing that's changing up free agency a little bit this year, Dad, is now we have the universal DH on NL and AL teams. So now you've got some NL teams maybe looking at some guys that they wouldn't have looked at otherwise that can now just come in and DH for them. Which reminds me, Dad, we need to add a DH to our fantasy league. now that there's a universal DH, we'll get on that once the show's done. That adds a little bit of excitement to what's going on as well, and things going on in the world of baseball. We're not going to lose that much baseball. You said if we started by June, then we were good to go. We're going to get mid-April right now. Only miss about 2 weeks of scheduled play. So, and they're planning on making up pretty much all those games. I think they're going to I think I heard they're going to cut back 3 games, and the rest of them will be played in doubleheaders and things like that. No, they're going to extend the season a couple extra days to get in those games, and then other games will be made up through doubleheaders. So they're still playing a full baseball slate this season as well. And now that you live closer to a Major League Baseball team than you have for most of your life, and the tickets will be cheap. Maybe we'll catch some more baseball games this year.
There you go.
Red stink. Does Joey Votto deserve better than he has? Should they move Joey Votto?
I don't know. He's a real name here. It'd be a big thing, I think, for fans and stuff to lose him. Of course, he didn't do as well, and then last year he had a pretty good year. So I don't know that they would move Votto. That you're definitely talking about a total rebuild and quite a thing for fans if you lose Joey Votto, unless they pick up a couple really good players. But yeah, it'd be interesting because there was a lot of excitement last year. They stayed in it, right up to the end of the year, and the fans here, there's Red fans everywhere. They're very loyal. They're going to hang around for a while. So.
Yeah, they're not like Bengal fans that all of a sudden showed up this year. They even when the Reds are bad, you still see Reds fans out there and showing. And if the NL didn't have DH, I think Joey Votto would be guaranteed to be traded. But now that they have the DH, there's a better chance he could stay if he wants to. Honestly, he may want out. He may want to go somewhere like Boston or New York where he can just go out and hit home runs and get on base and different things like that. But I don't know. We will see. So baseball is right around the corner. Don't make sure you tune in Sunday nights, 8 p.m. to the Fantasy Baseball Live show. You can also catch it on podcast form. But if you just search Belly Up Fantasy Baseball Live, you'll find it on most of your podcast apps, Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, and so on and so forth. Dad, let's move on to the NFL. Things are shaking and baking in the NFL. Of course, free agency is about to open up, which is going to add a lot more news for our next program. Let's start with Deshaun Watson. The news came out that they dropped the charges, not going to charge him with anything. He's still going through civil suits, and he could still face a suspension from the league. But it seems like the doors have opened, and New Orleans and Carolina are the 2 teams that have been reported to be making the biggest offers and run at Deshaun Watson. I've said it for a while now. He's a top 4 quarterback in the NFL, maybe a top 3 quarterback in the NFL when he's playing. And you got two programs, Carolina looking to build something, New Orleans looking to maintain something there as they have a new coach now. And looking just to stay relevant. If you were a team like New Orleans, Pittsburgh, Carolina, Philadelphia, I don't know, a team that needs somewhat of a quarterback, are you looking to Deshaun Watson?
Yes, I think if things are cleared legally, there's no doubt about that. Now, they say Houston is going to stand pat on what they're asking for, which really is quite a bit. I think part of that could depend on what player they get in there. They may say, well, I have to have 3 first rounds, but 3 first rounds on a player, if they get a significant enough player, maybe that would change. But yeah, I think all the teams that have been mentioned, and it sounds like teams are willing to do that. I mean, he's like you said, he's a great talent. He's young enough. And if you've got stuff to go with him, which some of these teams have more than others do there. So, a team goes out and gives up a lot to get him. And then if they're going to need other pieces, that may be something he looks at because, he'll make his money, no doubt about that. But, somebody giving up that many draft picks and depending what player they give up, I would think he might look toward a team that has some potential talent, to go with it a little more. But, I would think we'll get something on him real quick this week, I would think.
Yeah, I think that, you look at Carolina and New Orleans, they're in the same conference. You got Atlanta, who's kind of phasing out with Matt Ryan. You got Tampa, who's phasing out without a star quarterback in their midst, although they have a lot of talent on their team. and you've got New Orleans and Carolina. So you go to either of those teams, you're in a weak division for the most part. And a lot can come from a good quarterback. Carolina's been mentioning possibly moving on from Christian McCaffrey. So if he was included in that trade, you might not have to give up as much as draft capital in that case.
Yeah, a team that kind of interests me is Philadelphia because they've got 3 picks here in this round, so they could give up 2. And what if Houston was interested in Jalen Hurts? If that's somebody that they, Lovie Smith had scouted or somebody they liked, I know we don't think he's a proven commodity as a starter, but, he's somebody that there's still a lot of potential in. If they were to get him in this deal, to me, that would be interesting if he's mentioned in it, and might not be a bad thing for Houston. They might have a quarterback they could build on. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that Jalen Hurts is that big of an upgrade over Davis Mills, the guy that they drafted last year from Stanford. And so I think it's hard to say what you're looking at with Jalen Hurts. You'd have to have someone who really, really loves him. And remember, Lovie Smith was coaching at Illinois during that time. So I'm not sure how much he paid much attention to Jalen Hurts. And then you've got the staff there that, who knows what's going on with Texans front office. So that's interesting. I think you're looking at players like Jalen Reagor, for instance. He went to TCU. So there's a little tie to Texas. And then you've got a kid who was drafted high and is underachieved, but surely he has some talent. So maybe you're talking about draft picks and a guy like Jalen Reagor, maybe a defensive player that can play as well. An interesting package. None of those guys are Christian McCaffrey. I mean, if Houston could get Christian McCaffrey and some first-round draft picks, that's a thing too. And, of course, they've got a quarterback and Sam Darnold that if you kept brought in as a backup, planning on backing up Davis Mills, maybe you got something there. I don't know. I mean, it's not better than Deshaun Watson, but the team stinks anyhow. So we kind of overlook what Houston would get back more so and look at what the other team gets in Deshaun Watson with that. Arizona, they locked up Zach Ertz, tight end, 3-year deal. So they got him covered. Then there was the trade this week. Amari Cooper from Dallas to Cleveland. Cleveland needs wide receivers as they don't have really any right now. So Cooper was too much money for Dallas. They were going to move on, talked about cutting him. They didn't ask much for him. Of course, he's got a big salary, though, to go with it. So that's one of the reasons. But, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, man, a 5th, 6th round pick, that's a pretty good deal to get a guy like Amari Cooper on your team. Yeah,
I was very surprised about that for the price that he went for. But like you said, I guess it was strictly a money thing there from that. And maybe have it their young receivers. I see they've just got Galladay locked up. So, or the other receiver there, yeah.
Gallup, yeah.
Yeah. And so, Cleveland, again, I think Cleveland's got to decide what they're going to do with quarterback. But I think it was a good deal for them. I don't think any doubt about it. Amari Cooper, has got talent. That's for sure. I was surprised by that one. But like I said, the cap thing, that happens. And what I saw where Dallas is letting another guy, an offensive lineman, go seek a trade. Dallas seems to be shaking it up a little bit. And to me, I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah, starting right tackle La'el Collins is the player that is seeking a trade, and they're allowing him to go around, his agent to go around, try to find a good trade fit for him. Again, when you got a player like La'el Collins, you might be able to get a good enough return that you can make it, and it helps you financially, as well as getting something in return that can help you too. So maybe Baker Mayfield's a big question mark, right? We're talking about Cleveland. Who are you going to get right now that's better than Baker Mayfield? And I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield fan, but I mean, my goodness, who's out there? You said Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, maybe. But is there anybody out there right now that you're saying that's available that you would say, yeah, Cleveland should go get them and give up Baker Mayfield?
There's nothing that, look right now like that they're necessarily available. But like I said, is there some team with a new coach that's going to look about moving on, or that you could make a deal with? But yeah, they may not have a lot of options. Be very interesting to see.
Yeah, Baker's a name that I always kind of tie to Houston for some reason. If he becomes available, could be a guy that Houston go get because he's going to sell tickets, and so you bring him into Houston to sell some tickets. So maybe after they trade Deshaun Watson, they would have the pieces to be able to go and not have to spend too much to get Baker Mayfield out of Cleveland as well. Maybe Cleveland would be willing to take Davis Mills, or maybe they would be willing to take a guy like Jalen Hurts or a Sam Darnold. I don't think they want Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold pretty much done as it goes to great starting opportunities. Tom Brady says he'll return for another season.
Yes.
Hello. Well, that's interesting. So Tom Brady is back, and it's funny. Everything came out today. There was the big question mark about Ronaldo, the soccer player, asked him, "So you're done?" And Brady didn't answer with a yes, hemmed and hawed. And apparently, unless somebody got hacked, it says these past 2 months, I've realized my place is still on the field and not in the stands. That time will come, but it is not now. I love my teammates. I love my supportive family. They make it all possible. I'm coming back for my 23rd season in Tampa. So there you go. Tom Brady back in the NFL. Breaking news as we record. So there we go. Fun times. Brady's back. There you go. Does the NFC South still an appealing place to go? I would say it is still an appealing place to go if I'm Deshaun Watson. Tom Brady year 23 doesn't scare me like Tom Brady year 21 or even year 22, although I can't say he scared me in year 22 either. But you talk about the talent on that Tampa Bay team. Why not? If you're healthy, feel good, why not go for it?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little surprised. Maybe he's back at Tampa, but again, Tampa would have had to let him go, and I don't know that they would have done that. So that's a little bit of a surprise, and I mean, just a little strange. You retire, and then all of a sudden, no, I realized that I'm going to my place is on the field again. I'm not sure there's been that much time elapsed, so. That's a little strange there, and Tampa's going to have to shake things up a little bit because they didn't last year, and they didn't have the success they wanted to, and some of their guys are getting older from there too than they did 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting to see now what Tampa does, and they'll create a lot of excitement in the NFL for sure.
Yeah, but again, that South division is not very good. So the idea of being able to come back and win the division pretty easily at Tampa, maybe that was part of it that went into it. Of course, they tagged Godwin, so he's still there. So they still got Evans and Godwin at wide receivers. I'm assuming Gronk probably had a role in this as well. A good defense, or at least a decent defense. They didn't lose any coaches. Leftwich is still there. And the DC Bowls is still there too. So, run it back one more time. Interesting decision. I was kind of excited to be done with Tom Brady, but I guess we get another year of Tom. Maybe he just wants to go into the Hall of Fame the same year as Aaron Rodgers. So he's coming back for another year.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
No, that was, like I said, a lot of news breaking, and I'm sure there's going to be this week as what the free agency thing is. Wednesday, is that right?
I think it's Monday. I could be wrong. I think it's faster than Wednesday, or at least the non-tampering,
Yeah. Legal tampering, I think, is Monday, and then
so that's when everything happens.
Then huh?
Yeah, that's when everything happens during the legal tampering session. So
that's it.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We will get our brackets posted on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove, and we'll post our picks and talk about them in our next show as well. And looking forward to what's ahead. The plan right now is for the Wednesday local hour episode is to talk with A.W. Hamilton, head basketball coach at EKU, and kind of recap the season with him. And so make sure you tune into that Wednesday local hour episode. And then Friday, we'll be talking the NCAA tournament, all the NFL news, and any other news breaking at that time as well. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Enjoy a wonderful sports-packed week. Until next time, we'll see you